Hey everyone, and welcome back. Now today we're going to be going over a market update just because there's a lot of things going on within the crypto market recently. Obviously Bitcoin is continuing to reach new all-time highs, which is fantastic. It had been kind of a boring several months of just kind of a whole bunch of nothing happening, and now it feels like there's something new to talk about every single day. So anyway, let's go on ahead and dive right in. All right, so starting out, what we can see is, again, Virtuals continuing to move really well, Hyperliquid another. Virtuals and Hyperliquid have kind of been the two that have really probably shown the most strength recently. If we look at Hyperliquid, even just this week, they're up 112%, which is kind of ridiculous. Virtuals, again, almost 500% just this month. Tons and tons of gains coming out of both of them. But overall, otherwise, kind of the overall market looking pretty mixed. We are seeing Bitcoin continue to rise as we have been showing some strength. Ethereum also has been showing a decent bit of strength as well. Otherwise, kind of mixed overall, kind of everywhere else. But looking at the Ethereum chart, what we can see is something pretty interesting is actually starting to happen. We are just about to be breaking out of what we would call kind of the recent tops that we did see back in March. We're very, very close. We're basically actively running into that resistance point as we speak. We've already kind of gone up, and if we zoom in, we've kind of broken barely through it, we can see, but have kind of come back a little bit down. Now, whether we get rejected by this, come down, consolidate a little bit more, and then potentially try to take another shot at it, or we go right back up and potentially break through it. Overall, I mean, it's nice to see Ethereum showing a decent bit of strength. What we can see, I mean, obviously in March we saw it make this really, really fantastic run up, and then since then it was really making some pretty decent dips, seeing it coming back almost 50% before it then continued to make its subsequent run to the upside. There was a lot of people thinking that Ethereum was dead in this particular point in time. Not looking that way currently. Obviously, we have not breached like recent cycle highs nor all-time highs yet. But at this point in time, like, it is looking pretty good. The market's looking pretty like primed for it. Ethereum definitely showing some strength here. So I am definitely keeping an eye on that. Also moving over to Bitcoin, what we can see looking at the chart, obviously continuing to make highs after highs, continuing to hold this uptrend very strongly. Not really seeing too much weakness on the chart. We did consolidate a little bit in this couple week period, but we have kind of started to potentially look like we might be breaking out again. At this point in time, you know, based on what we're seeing right now, 110, 120, maybe 130 if things go really kind of nuts, do look to be possible by the end of 2024. So, you know, potentially anywhere between a $5,000 to $25,000 gain per Bitcoin, potentially on the cards up through the end of the month. Now, whether that happens or not, obviously no one knows for sure. But overall, I mean, the chart is looking really strong. We can see Bitcoin has kind of been holding in this strong range. Have not reached into overbought yet, but it is looking like that might be very, very close at hand, given that the metric for that is 70 and we're at 69.78. So definitely very, very close to that. We'll see kind of what happens there. Now, if you are interested in trading Bitcoin, Ethereum, XRP, Cardano, anything like that, you can feel free to use my link in the description below. I am working with BTCC again for another month. They have continued that offer of 10% bonus on first-time deposits, which in my opinion is an amazing deal. If you are looking for a new place to trade anyway, and you're looking essentially for 10% free money, I would say this would be a really great way to do so. Also, this is in addition to the extra bonuses of up to $10,055 per user, which obviously really great news. So tons of potentially extra money kind of on the cards if you are looking for a new place to trade and get signed up. Also, they've been around for 13 years, so you don't have to be super concerned about them being one of those pop-up exchanges that only lasts half a cycle, and you know, they're here one day, gone the next. Does not seem to be an issue with BTCC. They've been around longer than most of us have been at this point. 300 plus crypto futures, as well as up to 500x leverage. I would strongly discourage using leverage that high. That, in my opinion, that is a fantastic way to get wrecked. I never use leverage this high, but if you have some strategy that I'm unaware of, I highly doubt it, but if you do, it is available. Also, no VPN or KYC necessary, so if that is something you're looking for, that's also an option as well. So like I said, go ahead, check the link in the description below if that's something you are interested in. Now, moving on, I wanted to head over to this market overview dashboard that I made probably a couple months back, and we check in on every so often. This does, in my opinion, provide a pretty nice like bird's eye view of what the market's doing overall. What we can see, RSI heat map sitting pretty close onto neutral. So even though we have seen Bitcoin move up fairly aggressively, the rest of the market we haven't seen do so. I mean, obviously most kind of sitting in neutral. So there was a point a couple weeks ago where basically everything was in either strong or overbought. We have seen a lot of that pull back. So now everything is in much more of a neutral position, which is a good thing to see. I mean, that this is giving us some kind of some wiggle room and some recovery for us to potentially make another move to the upside. We can also see from the Bitcoin open interest and volume, we have actually continued to break all-time highs on open interest, $66 billion of open interest now. This is coupled with Bitcoin breaking that new all-time high. As we can see, volume staying pretty strong. We are kind of still continuing that general uptrend on volume. A couple obviously pretty ridiculous spikes here and there, but overall, I mean, much higher volume levels than what we were seeing here in a couple months prior. Now, looking at the crypto fear and greed index, we can see that we have squeezed back into extreme greed. I think this makes sense given that, you know, we have seen Bitcoin continue to break all-time highs. Even this pullback that we have seen in a lot of alts has really been quite minimal. And even still after some of the pullbacks, we've seen pretty strong recoveries out of most of the alts that were worst affected anyway. So I think extreme greed probably is still a fairly reasonable place for us to be in as far as what the market's looking like. And as far as the exchange liquidation map, we can see very slightly based toward the downside. However, I will say now that we are in an uptrend, this liquidation map has become increasingly unreliable, which leads me to believe that this is probably something that's quite nice to use when we are sitting in more of a choppy, essentially consolidation phase, accumulation phase, something like that. I think we could use this liquidation map to be I think we could use this as our primary source of how we make our decisions for trading. Again, not financial advice. You need to make your own decisions, but at least what I found is this was very useful and quite accurate. However, now that we have moved into an overall uptrend, it has been, I would say, generally less useful or less valuable just because there's so many other things factoring in, and also there's a lot of euphoria taking into the market, and there's also just so much more volume that exchanges are, frankly, exchanges are making a ridiculous amount of money whichever way the price moves. So for me, the fact that this has become less reliable, I guess kind of makes a little bit more sense. It is a little disappointing though, because we were using this to very great success for a while. What we can see, obviously, very much a move projected to the downside if we look at the 7-day. Now, do we see a move like this? Hard to say. I am personally still expecting that we see a pretty reasonable move to the downside here within the next month or so. I think we are probably going to see another pretty strong move to the upside on Bitcoin. We need to see a little bit more retail interest, essentially get retail brought in as much as possible, and then I think we will see a pretty strong move to the downside. We'll see retail go away, and then we'll kind of do the same thing all over again. It's a bit of a nasty business, but unfortunately that seems to be kind of how it goes. The people who don't understand what they're trading, which typically happens to be most retail investors, they're the ones who usually get wrecked the hardest just because they aren't paying attention when they should be, and they come around when all the headlines are talking about it, which, as many of you probably know, those are the ultimate worst times to get tuned into crypto. So now moving on, I did also want to take a quick look at how Ethereum is doing specifically, because since we have seen Ethereum's price come back, I'm imagining, I don't think we've quite seen it yet, but I'm imagining that people are going to start getting a lot more tuned into Ethereum as it starts to make its run and continues to make its run, because we have seen it is up over $4,000 again, which we haven't seen in several months at this point. So what we can see as far as the Ethereum supply, we did see a very strong move to the downside, meaning Ethereum was becoming deflationary. And this was prior to dank sharding and blobs and all this other type of stuff that we did see come through Ethereum that essentially increased scaling capabilities. Now, after this happened, we can see that supply is basically only increased, and that's because gas has been super low on Ethereum basically ever since this happened, and that's because the throughput of Ethereum became so much higher that there hasn't really been needs for really high gas fees. Now, what we can see though, as we've started to come up here, this has started to kind of tail off a little bit, because we are seeing gas fees come up a tiny bit. Again, 12-13 Gwei, if you were here in last bull run, this is super low, but it is good because it makes it cheaper for people to transact on the Ethereum network, and that's exactly what we want. However, what we were seeing is 0, 1, 2, 3 for most of this when the incline was the steepest. So basically transaction fees were a non-factor, if not almost completely zero at this point in time. As we see fees peak up a little bit, we are kind of starting to see that tail off here as we kind of move further through. Again, as we get further into the bull market, I will think we probably see this tail off almost to level and potentially even go a little bit deflationary. Again, almost impossible to say for certain what's going to happen, but that's kind of my opinion there. We can see since the merge, which happened just over 2 years ago, about 2.25 years ago, I guess, we can see that 73,000 Ethereum had been burnt. that's overall. Again, back down here, we were at 457,000 Ethereum, and so all of this has essentially been inflated back into the market. Again, I don't think this is too big of a deal, but this is just kind of pointing this out of kind of what has happened with the overall Ethereum supply. We can see total supply is 120 million, so definitely a decent supply still going on there. The supply change at this point has almost been negligible. We can see going on for kind of since we've seen this, there's been about 839,000 Ethereum burnt per year and almost 806,000 issued per year. So overall, that's kind of what we're seeing in the overall market today. I think things looking pretty good. Bitcoin is obviously still leading the way. I think we are looking for Bitcoin to top before we see anything too crazy happening with the alts. We've seen a little bit of action going on here and there, but none of the like complete madness and insanity that I think some of us may possibly be expecting or used to, at least from last bull run. Obviously, since it happened last time, there's no guarantees that it will happen again this time, but that's kind of the overall pattern I think that we are looking for. Just remember to remain flexible. If something doesn't pan out exactly as you're thinking, obviously it's not going to, right? I mean, nothing ever repeats twice. A saying that I like to use is history usually never repeats itself, but it does rhyme. And so that's generally kind of what we're looking for, at least in my opinion, in this upcoming cycle. Is obviously we're not looking to see the exact same things happen, but it should happen in somewhat similar fashion that we should be able to kind of draw the parallels to if we are paying close enough attention. So anyway, hopefully you found the information in this video useful. If you did, please do give me a like and subscribe because it really does help me out. Also, if you have any comments, questions, concerns, anything like that, just feel free to drop those in the comment section. I do try to read and respond to all of my comments. So if you have anything you want me to see, that'd be a great way to do it. Thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next video.